Welcome to Bull TV, where we are bullish on Collierville. I'm your host, David Pickler. Bull TV is a monthly show that empowers, educates, and entertains while highlighting the citizens of Collierville who inspire and deliver solutions for a stronger community. Bull TV is presented by Pickler Companies and is proudly produced by the students of Collierville High School. We invite you to watch our show at www.bulltv.show, thebullnetwork.com, and CHS-TV 19. New episodes air on the second Sunday of every month at 3 p.m. Central Time. On today's show, we sit down with author and acclaimed speaker Jeremy Park, who served as CEO of City Current. Join us on this inspiring episode as we hear about Jeremy's journey from a budding marketing student to a Memphis-based media icon. In the show, we'll learn about Jeremy's passion for powering the good and how City Current, as well as current collection of initiatives, empowers our community each and every day. When you think about all the things you're doing, what would you say has been the most challenging aspect of your career so far?
Saying no. I think people see the work and the effort. It is hard work. It's a 24/7 commitment. When you step in to just say, I want to make a difference, you don't punch the clock, right? Mm-hmm. So it's hard work, it's heart work. And you have to realize that, you do get to see the impact, but there are hard days. And when you talk about philanthropy, there's politics involved that you have to navigate through. When you talk about media, there's a lot of negative energy out there and people that do say things that they're not even thinking about. And all of that can be psychologically hard. And when you look at the pandemic, going through this roller coaster ride and then coming out, and instead of it being blue skies and, let's go 100 miles an hour, you walk right into, head first and bang your head into recession, inflation. So psychologically, there's a lot going on that people are trying to process. And so I think the hardest thing is continuing to be driven by positive energy and pour into others who are going through difficult circumstances and to lead a team through uncertainty. And in many cases, you feel like you're kind of in quicksand and you got to run 10 times as fast and as hard to get to the same end result that you were having. But all of that is extremely necessary. And I just think that for us, continuing to stay focused on bringing people together, even though right now live events are hard to get people out in any sort of regularity. It's fighting through the inconsistencies to maintain the mission to power the good for all the right reasons with the higher purpose. So it's just continuing to stay focused.
Well, I think that's so important. There's a word that you've used on several occasions today when we think about this whole idea of electricity and current, but that word is spark. And I love that word for all the different meanings it has. So, but there's a recognition program called the Spark Awards, and you serve as the host of this program, and gives you the opportunity, the unique honor of really honoring some amazing and distinguished Memphians. Tell me a little bit about the program. How did it come to fruition, and what to you is the most rewarding aspect of the Spark Awards?
So 10 years ago, we launched the Spark, and it's a monthly show on WKNO, PBS. And that came about by, you look at kind of my history in the entertainment business in Los Angeles and wanting to do broadcast media focused on positive shows. Mm-hmm. And so we launched the Spark, and at first people thought, oh, show focused on positives. We'll see where that goes. But it became WKNO's like most popular show. And so that then opened up the idea where it's like, well, what's next? Like, we've got some great momentum here. Like, what can we do? And 3 guests per episode, so 36 spotlights throughout a year. We thought, well, how can we elevate that? Because there is so much good going on. And so said, let's do a televised award show. We didn't realize what we were getting ourselves into, but we said, let's do a televised award show. And so 13 categories: individuals, nonprofits of various sizes, corporations. There's an education thread, so a school, an education, educator, and then a leader. And it's all public nominated. So throughout the month of August, the public nominates in. So you have hundreds of nominations coming in each of these categories. And the thing that I love about it is that when you talk about kind of where do all these stories come from, when you start asking the public, who are the noticers, and all these people who are doing all the right things but aren't seeking the limelight, they're just out doing the good, right? They're doing the hard work and the hard work. Man, you get these amazing stories that are just powerful. And as much as you think you're engaged and you have a pulse on all the good, you realize really fast, I have no clue, because all these amazing people, like, I don't even know. And they're doing such amazing work. But you also realize, too, the 10 o'clock news doesn't focus on mentoring, because you got to follow that story through a long path to get that story, right? And so these are the stories that need to be told, but they're a little harder to tell because you got to follow them. And so I love it for that reason. And so this is year number 9. Like I said, public nominates in August. We give it to the Midtown Memphis Rotary Club. They select the winner, so that way they do all the vetting and they manage it. They have all their committees together, and they're an amazing partner with this. But they select the winners, the honorees. Then we go in and we start interviewing them all and telling their story. And then what you get to see in December is all their stories play out. And it is inspiring story after inspiring story. And the beautiful thing is that, once again, when you look at the success of the show, now it airs locally, but it also airs all across the state of Tennessee on the PBS network. And I just think, once again, when you look at Memphis and using it as a lens for the good that's going on and sharing that inspiring story, but the lessons we're learning, how cool is it that you have 13 different individuals and organizations that we get to spotlight as a televised award show, the Spark Awards, that is now year number 9, that we get to celebrate that throughout the state of Tennessee.
Love it, man. That's great. You talked a little bit earlier about the importance of your family to you, and you've had this amazing career, very busy, very fruitful, but you have an incredible family. How do you find time to carve out the time for your family, for the family growth, the family time, the rejuvenation, to be able to really, propel yourself to be the kind of father, kind of husband that you want to be able to be?
Thankfully, you do get to a point with all this, and like I said, I view it, and it's true, it's a 24/7 deal. And I have an office in Midtown, kinda. We turned it into a production studio. My office really is at my house. So I've got a production studio, office area there. And the reason that's important is because when you look at, even like for coaching tennis, right? Well, we have to pick up Kaysen at 2:30 to be starting the matches by like 3:30 to then be playing, 4 to 5, and that's every day of the week with practices, and then you have state and matches. Well, that's hard to do if you can't manage your clock. And so being able to say, okay, I can peel away there because that's important, but then I'll make that time up as soon as I get home, go back out, and we have an attached building where I'm officed out of, so I'm out there at night catching up on all these projects and doing everything so that we still maintain the momentum, but I've got to psychologically view it as I can create those breaks in my day where the priority for family needs to be.
Right.
Realizing that I've got a very small window before he steps into high school, and where I can play that important role with him. And so I look at Meredith and her ability to manage all of these moving pieces, because I'm having to travel a lot, events, all these things. Well, she's got a full-time job too. So managing her schedule and our schedule with the kids, and she's able to figure out, okay, I'll do this if you do this, and we'll meet in the middle here, and that's teamwork, but ultimately too, it's sacrifice, right? And you have to appreciate those who are making a tremendous sacrifice to be able to do what's necessary for the betterment of our kids and our family, but ultimately so you can have those special memories knowing that life is short.
I love it. It sounds like you really done a great job of achieving balance, between, or at least aspiring to create that
My
balance.
wife would argue with that, but yes, I try. Harmony is the word that we try, because it's like it's going to ebb and flow dramatically, but I don't know if there is such a thing as balance necessarily with all these things, but we try to find some level of harmony with it for sure.
We will adopt that word. I like that. So with that harmony in mind, then you think about what you've done in your career. What would be the best career advice that you could provide for our viewers?
Get involved. And so I think for youth and college students, it's not just raise your hand and say, hey, I want to be a part of the solution. Mm-hmm. It's take a leadership role. And that's where I go back to. Seriously, write down on a piece of paper, and it can change over time, but write down what you're fighting for. What's your legacy? And you may be 12 years old, but it's like, and that sounds foolish. Write down the legacy, but write down what do you care about? Mm-hmm. Is it animals? Is it mentoring others and coaching sports? What do you care about? Write that down, carve out the time, put it on your calendar, literally put it in your calendar. We can help. There's other organizations, Volunteer Odyssey. There's so many amazing organizations that can help get you aligned with those nonprofits. Start serving. You will build beautiful friendships and meet the most amazing people in your community, which ultimately will change your life, in all these new ways. But ultimately, you get to start seeing that what you care about can make a difference and an impact. And especially for youth, realizing that this really is your future. Mm-hmm. When you start getting involved and take a leadership role, and that's where I go back to the big and the small, get involved with the small nonprofit. And don't just say, hey, I'm here to help. Like, I want to get involved and I want to lead something. A committee, take on social media, create, reels on Instagram, whatever it is, something that you can take ownership of. And when you do that, you start realizing that people are watching. They're paying attention. They may not mention it at first, but they're noticing. Mm-hmm. And when you are delivering results, when you're making a difference, you are going to be noticed. And I think, for me and for Meredith, so our older son is at University of Alabama now, and you talk about all these things, and you take your kids volunteering, and you're hoping that it's sinking in, right? And he called the other day, and he's like, hey, we're doing all these club days, and Meredith's asking, well, did you sign up for any clubs? And he's like, no, we created our own.
Wow.
We're calling it the Crimson Project. We already have 93 signed up for it. And what we do is we're taking those who want to do research and aligning them with nonprofits that need research done so that we can help and lift our community. And I thought, how amazing is that? But it also has opened up his eyes on what community service means, why it's so important, how he can make a difference. And now he's interacting with all these nonprofits and leaders and medical executives, and he wants to go into medicine, and it's opening up all these new opportunities. And so when you look at, in a world of what's in it for me, mm-hmm. everything in the world is in it for you when you start serving. And it doesn't have to be a full-time commitment. It literally can be a few minutes a day, an hour a week, an hour a month, an hour a year. Be intentional.
Goodness. This may be a hard one for you. Of all the media outlets that you produce or host, which one do you think has the greatest impact, or maybe has achieved the greatest traction?
That is a hard one. I've got to be political on this one. They're all good now.
They're all your children. So
and so, to be fair, they're all very different. Mm-hmm. And they all have different audiences and really special reach in different ways. And so, perfect example. So we've got radio shows in Memphis and Nashville. Mm-hmm. We're on 4 stations in Memphis, 98.1 The Max, Kicks 106, 103.5 WRBO, 98.9 The Roar of Memphis. Each one of those very different. When you look at the demographic of Kicks 106 versus 98.1 versus 103.5 versus News Talk, very different, but yet huge reach. I mean, it's over 20% market share for the show. And every single weekend, we get phone calls or emails or testimonials from a nonprofit organization saying, hey, we had one come in. The largest order for this nonprofit ever came in from someone who listened to the show and said, I want to get involved.
Wow.
So when you look at having the show and then what does it mean, that's powerful, right? And that's what you want. Like you do something and you're like, well, does anyone listen? Does anyone watch? And all of a sudden you hear that and you're like, wow, that's amazing. It's always, it always shocks me in a good way. And then you look at PBS or our TV show on MeTV. Each one of those, once again, different audience, huge reach, all the way down for WKNO into Corinth, Mississippi. And so my wife's family gets to see, the storylines. But we have a chance then to spotlight the nonprofits working in those communities. Mm-hmm. So each one brings very unique opportunities that do play and create this synergy that I love. And so it's like picking your favorite kid. You can't pick your favorite. They all are different in a cool way. But I just love that. And then you combine that with things like Forbes, the Changemakers podcast. All of them have different focuses, different reasons for us doing them. But ultimately, they all are creating results that are just awesome.
That's a great politically correct answer. I love that.
Yeah, hey, I told you, it's got to be a little bit political on this stuff.
I love it. Memphis has a lot of amazing people. And we're so blessed to have so many great servant leaders and leaders in really in all walks of life. Which Memphian has had the greatest impact on your life?
I would have to say Johnny Pitts. I mean, when I look at, he took a big chance on me. Coming from Los Angeles, not knowing anybody, and hiring someone who's not connected to the community, doesn't know anyone, to run a networking organization, like, what? And I was 29, 30, young guy.
Oh, I met you right after he hired you, so I remember.
So that was a big leap of faith for him, and to trust me. But then I give him so much credit because he's not only poured into me over the last 15 years and taught me so much about business and how to look at things and strategically operate, but also too, when I sat down with him, and like I said, it was a very entrepreneurial approach, right? Like, I'll pay you over here and run this over here, and let's organically see where we can grow this thing together. And now where City Current really is my full-time job, and there's a whole team running, on this side, amazing to see in both directions the growth. But every step of the way, when I sat down with him and said, here's my vision for my career, here's the path I want to go on, here's where I want to be professionally, financially, he's been ahead of me every step of the way. And I think that is something that is really important, is for you to be able to communicate with your leadership on what your vision is, and to have a clear vision of what success means to you, right? And so for me, day one, showing Johnny and kind of painting that picture of what success was for me, he's been ahead of me everywhere. I mean, so much so he's like, Jeremy, I know this is where you want to be at this point. I'm going to up you, and I'm going to do. And so I love him. I appreciate him for doing that. So Johnny Pitts for sure. People like Michael Drake. There's so many amazing people here who, if I start naming names, I'm going to forget them all. So it's like, you can't really, to be fair. But I just look around, and our email list is about 10,000 people in terms of our main connections for the distribution list. And so many of them are close friends. And I think that's really cool. When you can walk into an event and 3/4 of the room, and they're all change makers doing amazing things, and you can have really special conversations, and not a single bit of it is around, like, what are you doing as your business? It's what are you involved in, and what are the projects going on, and tell me about this effort and how it's working over here and your kids, and that is special.
I love it. All right, now this is one that you may have a hard time condensing this into less than like an hour. But of all the activities, the career, the civic service, they all point to one thing: powering the good. And when we think about why do you think it's so important to power the good, especially here in the Mid-South?
So Memphis is always one of the most generous cities in America. You hear that a lot as a great marketing, piece for our community. It's true. Mm-hmm. On average, about 6% per capita per person. A lot of that is faith-led, churches pouring in, which is amazing. At the same time, though, the dichotomy of that is we're also one of the poorest cities in America, right? And so when you look at what that means, and people, it is a good thing, but you also have to put it in perspective. If we're one of the poorest cities and we're giving 6%, that's not the same as Los Angeles giving 6% or New York giving 6%. We still have a long way to go to make up the gaps. We also have generational poverty that we need to do something about. Mm-hmm. And when you go into these schools that are woefully underfunded, and you look at the leaders, and this is where for new leaders, when you go in and you meet the people and you're like, oh my gosh, these people are amazing and look at the difference they're making. But then you look at their surroundings and what these kids are having to learn in terms of the experience, and then go home to broken families. And we wonder, well, why is crime happening? Why are the kids going into gangs, and why are they lost and not seeing hope and opportunities?
Right.
And it's because there's no physical presence around them that's positive. Mm-hmm. And so when you talk about power of the good, I think for me, it's getting outside of ourselves. And instead of pointing the finger at everyone else saying it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault, you're to blame, you go solve the problem, it's wait a second. I need to take a deep look in the mirror at myself and say, I do have the time. The average person looks at their phone like, ridiculous amount of times per day. You have the time. You have the ability. When you open up your heart and you start caring, you start realizing I can be a part of that solution and make a big difference for our community. And there are so many amazing organizations that are trying, but right now more than ever, they need volunteers. The pandemic has really impacted fundraising and volunteerism. And so there is a severe shortage where we need to step up. And so I just think right now is a wake-up call, but it's also an opportunity for us. Back to we have one of the largest under 18 populations in America. We need to turn that into an advantage. But to do that, we have to physically serve. We have to be present in their lives. And whether that's coaching sports, mentoring, reading to kids, whatever it is that you're good about, or that you're good at and you care about, you can use that as an opportunity to engage a young person and make a lifelong friend, but also make a lifelong difference in our community. And bridge a lot of these gaps that if you don't know somebody, it's easier to marginalize them. Mm-hmm. When you start getting to know someone and they are a person where you respect them and appreciate them and have empathy and understanding for what they're going through, now you've got a friendship and it changes everything.
That's powerful. So let's follow up with that. So how can others join you, join your crusade, join your efforts to really build up our community and empower our neighbors to really thrive and to be what we can be?
The beautiful thing is so many of your past guests, are organizations and people that we partner with and support and try to power the good with together. For us, go to our website, citycurrent.com. So citycurrent.com, you see all the opportunities to plug in. And even if that's just you coming out for free, all of our stuff is free. The companies underwrite the efforts so that we can power the good and get the community involved for free. So if you're doing good, let's celebrate it on the media because people need to know. Come out and get involved physically. Come out to the events. Start building those relationships. Come out and serve with us. And whether it's with our volunteer experiences through City Current, like our Samaritan's Feet, where we wash the kids' feet, give them new socks and shoes, or partnering you with Volunteer Odyssey and all these different organizations that is their 100% mission, is to plug you into volunteer opportunities. Let's get you plugged in. And that's where the magic starts to happen, and that's where the smiles start to really happen, because you start seeing the impact. But we want to get you involved, whether that's individually or corporately through City Current. And then you mentioned Growth Current, growthcurrent.com, another easy way to plug in. All these ways are meant as vehicles to get you plugged into the community and to get you to be a spark to make an even greater difference.
Okay, you've talked about spark, you've talked about getting involved. There's another term that we've used today, and that is, what do you think it means to be a catalyst in our community?
Catalyst, change maker, upstander. There's a lot of words that I think kind of fall in the same area. To me, a catalyst is someone who can take resources, and it doesn't have to be plentiful resources. It can be just a small ability or small amount of resources, but ultimately with a purpose to make a difference, right? Mm-hmm. Go back to power of the good. So it's catalyst, spark, whatever term you want to use. But I think every city needs more catalysts. They need more third-party groups that will get outside of the bureaucracy, the politics. And I think that's where you do have to realize businesses have a really distinct advantage over government. Businesses can form their own outside alliances strategically to work together and say, we've got resources over here, and let's use them, and let's solve this problem now. Mm-hmm. We don't have to ask for permission. Let's do it. Perfect example. We do a school tour. We walk out. At the end, we ask the principal, what's one thing we can do to make a difference? How can we help you? You get really crazy responses that you would have never thought. Mm-hmm. And so if I was to ask you as the listener, like, what would you say? They ask for things like, we need 400 ponchos because our kids have to walk. And if it's pouring down rain, they don't come. Gotcha. Tomorrow, show up with 400 ponchos. They're not asking for a new, huge thing. They need 400 ponchos for the kids because when it pours down rain, they can't physically get to school. Well, businesses can step in and solve that right now. So I think that's where, when you talk about being a catalyst, is noticing, asking, how can we help? And then being able to source your own resources over here to then step in and say, I got you, let's do it, and let's solve this problem now. And I think if we take that mindset of being a community champion, of being a community catalyst, imagine what we could do.
So here we are in Collierville High School, and I'm going to use a little bit of a scientific reference, because when I think of the term catalyst, I think of inertia. Body at rest and stay at rest, a body in motion and stay in motion. And you need that catalyst. And it seems to me that a lot of businesses have a desire to want to get involved, but they don't really understand how. And how we can then create that momentum and create that movement. And it seems like, what you're doing with City Current is trying to both create awareness of the problem by shining a light on these many opportunities there are to serve. And because I do believe that there are so many businesses, so many people in this community who have a genuine desire to want to power the good. And so I really applaud what you're doing by shining that light and creating that inspiration, because I really believe that we can create an entire generation of catalysts who can create that movement, create that motion, create that power, that energy. They can be that spark.
I like the word inertia. I mean, and you're exactly right, is time poverty is real. When you talk about running a business, you're in the weeds over here, and especially right now where you do have labor shortages and all these supply chain challenges and dynamics at play. So it can be hard to step out and look around and say, where can I get involved? So I think back to Catalyst, a piece of that is being a third party and offering turnkey solutions that are plug and play to say, hey, look, you don't have to organize anything, just show up. Just send it out to your team, sign up and show up and, come ready to give some love. And I do think that we have to make it easy. And you're seeing this for the nonprofits, realizing that they've got to create other committees that can meet outside of business hours, or maybe it's only during business hours because that's where people can meet. And so they're having to be a lot more creative and nimble to be able to bring the volunteers in because they need it. At the same time, I think that's where we do, on the business side, have to realize it's extremely important. Back to social impact is mandatory. We need to make it a priority. And let's figure out how to make it easy. The other thing I'll say too is, and this goes back to some of the stuff with Forbes and the trends, one of the other ones is the one-for-one model, right? Where it was changed by Tom's and Warby Parker and all these organizations that for every shoe you buy, it benefits one in need. Well, that's not for every business. But the idea is it changed the idea of I'm baking in the hard cost of giving into every single transaction. So now it's sustainable. It's not wait till the end of the year to have a good year or not. I might not be able to give anything. Now it's every single transaction has a higher purpose, which is powerful for your team. But it also, too, you realize as a business, well, wait a second, I can donate 5% of every sale, 10% of every sale. I can put that into a charitable coin bank over here. I can assign that based on my purpose-driven platform, my philanthropic statement, or I can let my employees choose where to go. So there are a lot of things creatively, once again, building it into the routine that you can do as a business to make it very easy.
I love it. Last couple of questions. We talked about the fact that here we are filming in this beautiful Collierville High School, and we're so proud of this building. What message, Jeremy, do you have for the students of Collierville High when it comes to leadership?
Realize that you are a champion. You are a leader. You get caught up into, I've got to have a title to make a difference. No, you don't. I would argue that as a youth, you have a much more powerful opportunity because you can ask anyone at any age, hey, can we go spend time together? Can we go, I want to learn your industry. I want to learn what made you successful. I want to learn from you. You can do that as a young, high school student or college student, and man, you can get access to the most powerful people in the world, and you can shadow them, and you can be mentored by them, and you can do some amazing things. But you have to see yourself as a champion, and you have to take the initiative. And I think that's my word of encouragement is don't wait for a title. View yourself as a community champion right now, but do raise your hand and take the initiative to get involved. And I look at all these opportunities that can come about, and you can literally, all your dreams can come true if you take the initiative to make it happen.
Love it. Jeremy, last question, and again, thank you so very much. This has been incredible. When you reflect on your career, many years from now, when you're looking back on your career, what would you hope would be your legacy?
For me, my legacy, I think, is going to live on, obviously, in my kids, but in the youth. And I just want people to realize that, one, I cared, and I cared enough about them and what their dreams were to try to realize those, especially for youth. We were talking before we hit record is that, for so many who want to get in the entertainment business, who want to have a TV show, a podcast, we tell them all the time, come, let's help you launch it. We'll be we'll guide you through the whole way. We'll get you set up. So for me, I just want people to feel like I cared about them, and also I was able to move the needle for them in their life to accomplish a dream that they had that was important to them, that ultimately makes them smile.
Fantastic. Jeremy, again, cannot thank you enough sharing your inspirational story, your life, your passion. You are a catalyst. You are a spark, and I think we can all feel more empowered about powering the good and making a difference in our community. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it, David.
The ancient philosopher Balthasar Grecian once stated that the sole advantage of power is that you can do more good. Balthasar recognized that the socially responsible use of power can lead to beneficial outcomes. The use of power also represents an essential element of leadership. A decisive question arises whether leaders in their function as power holders use their power to serve the greater good or abuse it for selfish ends. But empirical research has extensively demonstrated that ethical leadership is related to beneficial follower outcomes, such as higher employee job satisfaction, performance, and organizational loyalty and commitment. Organizations such as City Current and leaders like Jeremy Park are vital connectors between America's corporate entities and the communities in which they serve. The vast majority of business leaders are keenly interested in giving back and paying forward with passion and purpose. However, the disconnect that can sometimes arise is that the appropriate strategies and opportunities to deploy both human, corporate, and financial capital to the areas of greatest need and to where they can do the greatest good need to be identified. I believe that our nation is filled with ethical and compassionate leaders who are motivated not just to achieve success, but also to pursue true significance in the lives of the communities they serve. Thank you very much to Jeremy Park for your inspirational leadership and the guidance as you empower American business to invest in by doing well, by doing good. Your efforts to strengthen the fabric of our society and reflect the truly American values of caring and compassion are amazing. And that is my 2 cents. Until next time, I'm your host, David Pickler. Thank you for watching Bull TV, where together we deliver solutions for a stronger community.